Hey guys, welcome back to another Q&A. It is May 24th, 2020, and it was an open Q&A this week. So I actually posted it today and it filled up pretty quick, so I wanted to try to get it recorded today as well. All right, so let's see. What is your sleep hygiene routine? Also, what additions have you made that have had the most noticeable impact on sleep quality and duration? My personals, I'm very routine in my sleep wake time and what I do every night. If you guys have heard me talk about, circadian patterns, one of the biggest things there is just trying to be consistent. Your body likes routine when it comes to that, when it comes to circadian patterns and secreting hormones, especially things like melatonin, right? So the more regimented you can be, the better. The sleep routine starts with, it's not just at night, your whole day matters. We talked about this a little bit on the last OPD podcast, which has not come out yet. We talk about, light exposure and getting light exposure during the day. One of the first things I like to do is, if there's any type of good natural light in the morning, I like to open the curtains or blinds and get the light in. If not, I'll use my sun lamp, right? And try to use that sun lamp for a while during the day, or get light into my eyes a few times during the day, and that's important. And then also, when we actually get to nighttime, I'd say right around 2 hours before bed. Keep in mind it's staying lighter longer now, obviously, so it's a little different, but maybe like 2-ish hours before bed, all the lights are out in my house. I don't have any lights on. I'll light candles. I might have like a light on and like under the range on the stove or something like that, but none of my overhead lights are on. I do have a salt lamp that would turn on sometimes, but usually I just light candles. Right now it's not getting dark until later anyhow, but light candles, use that light, and put my blue blockers on. My phone is set to go off, no blue light at a certain time. I actually have it turned down pretty much most of the day. And then computer does the same thing. So if I'm on the laptop late, it will shift, right? It's the Lux, I think. Yeah, F Lux or Flux, F.Lux. So I'll use that, and that's just a timer. I just set the time. It shuts it off at, like 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock, or it might even be like 6 or 7, but anywho, it'll go, to a red hue. Also, like I said, I go to bed pretty much the same time. I try to be pretty chill before bed. I try to cut myself off from working. I try not to work and then go directly to bed. I try to do something in between that's more relaxing. Even if that's just sitting on my couch for 30, 45 minutes, I try to do something in there that's not work intensive, that doesn't require any type of thought, So do that. Bedroom, we keep cold. So we have central air in our house, right? So air conditioning, but we use a window AC in the room. We like the house cold, but it seems like our room stays hot for some reason, so we'll use the window AC in there and keep the room even colder than the house, so I'm not running my thermostat at like some crazy low temperature. So we do that. I just started using silk, like a silk or satin pillowcase that keeps cooler on my head. I do like that. You can get those on Amazon. I just bought like a pair of them. They're not super cheap. They're not like insanely expensive. They're not like a few bucks or anything, but they definitely are nice. You can use like a cooling pillow too if you want. They've got like the gel type. I wear earplugs. I wear a chin strap for snoring. I find if I use that, I don't really need a CPAP. I do fine. I don't really have Mine's more of a snoring thing. I don't really have a lot of obstruction. It's more just keep my mouth shut. I'm pretty good. That helps me stay asleep because I'm not snoring and waking myself up. So you mentioned staying asleep. That's one of the things there. And then the routine, obviously, and keeping the room cool and comfortable. I mean, being comfortable is part of being able to stay asleep, right? So having bedding, like we have a huge California king size bed. It's huge. So, I mean, we don't like run into each other all night. And if we get hot, we don't have to be like, so close that we're too hot or whatever. So all that stuff matters. The stuff that I've just slowly adapted over time and accumulated these little things here and there. And that's what the routine is like. And that's what I prefer. So based on your experience, are there any ways of seeing through basic lab work or testing for early diagnosis of cancer other than imaging, which shows cancer that's been developed after a few years? There are some markers that can be measured, like there's some antigens and things that can be measured. I know private MD labs used to offer that. I don't know if they do anymore, and I know they increased all their prices. But that, and then potentially like very skewed immune markers, like white blood cells and neutrophils and lymphs and all these things. I mean, you might see that. However, if that's the case, there's probably already something there. How far along? I mean, I don't know, because that's not really my, like, that type of diagnosis types of things, not my forte, obviously. But yeah, you might check into like some certain cancer antigens, and you can probably get those tested. How much insight that gives you, I'm not really sure. I don't think that there's anything. You say early diagnosis, yeah, that might help with an earlier diagnosis, but I mean, it's probably already going to be there, right? So those are some things that you can look at. What are some of the best things you have done education-wise to get you where you are today? Man, I get this education question a lot. I had it earlier today. Someone asked me, like, where did you learn what you know, or something, and I don't even know, because I pulled it from so many places over such a relatively long period of time. Like certain things, they just stick with me. I mean, when someone has an interest for something, they tend to retain it, and that's just really what the case was, right? I don't have any books or like websites or forums or anything like that I could just attribute the majority of my education to. It was just an accumulation of things over time, honestly. I mean, and when I started coaching and bodybuilding and stuff, I mean, there wasn't nearly the information there is now. Now there's so much. I mean, now really the problem is is the information good or not, because there's so much of it out there, and there's a lot of it's not that good. There is good information. Knowing what's good and what's bad is kind of the difficult part at this point, and dissecting that. Man, there's not anywhere in particular. Just reading things, trying things, and and like a lot of the stuff I post about health-wise too, learning the basic mechanisms of things, and then figuring out, like, okay, well, how does this apply to our population? How does this issue apply to our population? What are the common issues I see as a coach? What gaps can I help fill that I don't think are being filled within this industry? Things like that. And then, of course, all the times I messed myself up, I learned a lot from those issues, and that made me, interested. And sometimes, like, early on, challenging myself with stuff like, hey, I've got this going on. I'm like, well, hey, I'm not an expert on this maybe, but let me see what we can learn and figure out. I'm always going to push you over to a doctor if I'm not comfortable with it. But that's like how I learned a lot of that stuff initially too, and then I got more comfortable with things, right? So I know that's not a very good answer. I have people like, well, what website or book or whatever? Like, I don't know. There's not one. So next one, if you're having your blood work done to check kidney function, CK levels, etc., how long before the test would you lay off training to get a more natural result? As training with weights especially can dramatically heighten your levels. Yeah, I would probably say 48 hours is good. You might even see elevations, some temporary elevations up to like 72 hours in certain markers. You mentioned CK. CK is one of the main things it's looking at is muscle damage. Well, skeletal muscles are muscles. It's also looking at heart muscle, right? So people might have elevated CK after like a heart attack or some kind of cardiovascular event, but they're also going to have elevated CK after weight training. So, you know, CK, like we know liver enzymes fluctuate, right? But CK is one of those, it fluctuates a lot, like hundreds of points. So you're better off just trying to lay off at least for a couple days to give you some more accurate reading. And if stuff's still elevated after that, then you know it's probably not training related inflammation and you might want to investigate. So, all right. Do you feel periodic overreaching prior to deloading can be advantageous as opposed to keeping volume relatively constant during a mesocycle? Of course, with the latter still having a goal of beating the logbook each week. So, you know, intentionally programming in overreaching. Yeah, there are times that I'll do that intentionally. There, especially schedule related stuff or life related stuff. If I know someone's going to need to back down because they have something going on that's going to be demanding, I might intentionally have them overreach and then deload during that period where they don't have as much time or whatever they got going on. So that could be one way to do it. Intentionally programming overreaching, I will occasionally, but what I'm going to look at is what's going to give me the best, what's going to yield the best result over time. So am I going to get a little better result from not having to deload as often and being just a hair over the threshold in which those adaptions are going to occur? Because remember, too much means overreached, not enough means no adaption. You got that middle ground where you have to have, you know, you have that you can adapt in positively and not overreach and you know, grow muscle, right? So it's like I said, schedule related overreaching is fine. I don't overreach people intentionally a whole lot, and unless I'm doing phases where I'm not noticing much progression and I might build things up. Now, if I'm seeing progression on a pretty constant basis, I probably won't mess with it. I'll probably leave it constant, and I'll probably let their progression be beating the logbook. So, you know, progressive tension versus progressing volume up. But if I'm not seeing it, you know, I may progress the actual workload up as well. And also some people that can't, like some people that I can't push their CNS as hard, I might work volume up a little bit more with some submaximal work. I mean, obviously that's still gonna tax their CNS some, but I might do that instead of just progressively overloading and killing, you know, crazy intensity. So answer is yes and no. It kind of depends on which kind of system there works for you and what your situation's like. And then also, like, what do you prefer mentally? I mean, that would play into it as well. So, all right, let's see. I think I have one more. Yeah, last one. Hey, Austin, I want to give you a Q&A, or a question for your Q&A, be anonymous. Oh, this is on my messenger. So, how many pounds should an ex-bodybuilder who's recovered from an eating disorder trying to gain muscle again aim for per week once a healthy weight has been reached? This individual is pretty darn lean. Now, one big factor here that's going to be different than a lot of situations is this person has had more muscle mass in the past. So Does the whole muscle memory thing play into it? I would say probably yes, especially if they have not really actively tried to gain back that muscle in quite some time. I would probably primarily watch body composition. I would potentially create a slightly bigger surplus than you may normally. You know, if you're only going to want to do a couple hundred calories a day, you might try 500, 600, 700, maybe 1,000 initially, even a big one, big surplus if they're really, really lean, right? Watch body composition. What's happening? Are they filling out and blowing up and not and gaining like pretty minimal body fat, or are they getting fat too fast? We need to pull back a little bit. But this individual might be able to get a little more dramatic body composition change just because of the whole muscle memory thing. And you know, are they going to like blow past their previous set point? Probably not. It's going to get more difficult the closer they get to that set point. But my point is that they might have a window there where they can potentially grow a little bit quicker, right? So they say pounds. I mean, I don't know. If you're a normal person gaining a few pounds a month, maybe, I mean, you might be able to gain 5 or 8 or something like that, a little bit more. You know what I mean? It really just depends on like how much muscle they had lost from where they were previously, and that's kind of going to determine it. But I would say just in general, they can probably go a little bit quicker, if that makes sense. Okay, guys and gals, and that is it for this week. I will, let's see, yep, that's all of them. I'll talk to you guys next week.